Oops, I'm going the wrong way again, sorry. All right, here's a chart. This is where we are today, and this is just extrapolating it out. Okay, so what, so if this continues like this, what we end up is hyperinflation. Okay, in natural systems, you hit structural problems. Things cannot compound to forever. So it either goes to hyperinflation, where money becomes worthless, or we end up with a deflationary recession, like we had in the Great Depression. So debt-based money systems, they're going to continue to compound, or they're going to fail. Okay. Now I just wanted to. We can see here owls and lemmings, right? They're part of the natural system, and it's the same sort of thing where you go hyperbolic, and then it'll crash. Okay. Here's another natural system. This is snowshoe hare and lynx. And again, you end up with that same pattern. Here's another chart to show you. And this is debt to GDP, the debt to the size of our real economy. And you can see on the far left, you can see in the Great Depression, there was a run-up to the Great Depression. The money supply expanded. Eventually, the debt grew, but incomes didn't. And eventually, there was not enough income to pay the debt. And then we had a deflationary recession. Since all money's debt, I can't pay my debt, the money supply shrinks. And now, because the money supply is shrinking, again, that 5% that we need to pay the interest on that $100, the money supply continued to shrink. Okay, so then, and now you can see here, starting in 1981, you can see where it starts to go hyperbolic. Does anybody know when the Great Bull Market started? Can anyone guess? About 1980. So much of the bull market that we saw was really debt-based. People were willing to pay more for $1 of earnings. So all that money supply, because debt is money, ended up flowing into the stock market. Now, since this is a Chesterton conference and GK was friends with Blair Block, I want to read you a little bit from her Block's pamphlet on usury. Now, suppose the following case. When the American city of Boston was founded 300 years ago, a man in London proposing to emigrate thither left gold to the value of £1,000 with a London goldsmith, under the bond that the goldsmith might use the money until he or his heir should demand it, but with the proviso that 5% of his capital should accrue at compound interest until it was withdrawn. The immigrant did not reappear. The goldsmith business developed, as so many of them did, into a sort of bank as the beginning of the 17th century went on. By the beginning of the 18th, it was a bank in due form, and its successors today is part of one of the great banking concerns of our time. The original deposit has gone on fructifying, as the phrase goes, with the liability piling up but nobody claiming it. At last, in this year, 1931, an heir turns up and proves his title. The capital sum into which this modest investment of £1,000 at 5% has grown is to be paid out over to him under an order of the court. Do you know how much it will come to? More than twice the annual revenue of the United States. Compounding cannot continue. Here's another quote from on usury. And I think for Americans, we're so taught, we're so ingrained to go out and maximize the returns and go to the stock market. So this is maybe a little strange to hear to the American ear. Hopefully you're offended. Distinction lies between a demand for part of the product of a productive loan, which is moral, and the immoral demand for either interest on an unproductive loan or interest greater than the annual increment in real wealth which a productive loan creates. Such a demand wears down, eats up, drains dry the wealth of the borrower, and that is why it is called usury. A derivation inaccurate in philology, but sound in morals, rightly connects usury with the idea of destroying, using up, rather than the original idea of use. Usury, then, is claiming of interest upon an unproductive loan or of interest greater than the real increment produced by a productive loan. It is the claiming of something to which the lender has no right, as though I should say, pay me 10 sacks of wheat a year for the rent for these fields, after the fields have been swallowed up by the sea, or they had fallen to producing annually much less than 10 sacks of wheat. See, that would be unjust. It's a basic failure of justice. And I think, you Americans, speaking like Joseph Pierce, you Americans, it's so ingrained in us that we're capitalists, and, we talk about the miracle of compound interest. We don't understand the problems with it. Okay. Now, there's been a lot of political discussion on the left and right about the failure of capitalism and the failure of government. Many on the left, they say failure is of capitalism, and they're partially right. The classical libertarians, sometimes called conservatives, they say it's been a failure of government, they're partially right. Pope Benedict has said the financial crisis is a result of man's fallen nature, and that's the heart of the problem, the real reason. Human institutions of government and of the market have failed to do justice and serve the common good. And on this side of heaven, there's no possibility of a perfect free market. I just hear all these liberations. The market will do this. The market, the market, the market. It's their idol. And then, everybody thinks that the government can do it. It's their idol. So, oops, went too fast. What I want to do, I'm just going to take a few sentences from Veritas and Veritate, the new encyclical by Pope Benedict. Sometimes modern man is wrongly convinced that he is the sole author of himself, his life, and society. This is a presumption that follows from being selfishly closed in upon himself, and it is a consequence to express it in faith terms of original sin. The Church's wisdom is always pointed towards original sin and social conditions and in the structure of society. Ignorance of the fact that man has a wounded nature inclined to evil gives rise to serious areas in the areas of education, politics, social action, and morals. In the list of areas where the pernicious effects of sin are evident, the economy has been included for some time now. We have a clear proof of this at the present time. Yes. Take that, you Austrians. Now, in defense, though, I want to just finish another paragraph here. Again, from the encyclical. The conviction that man is self-sufficient and can successfully eliminate the evil present in history by his own action alone has led him to confuse happiness and salvation with immediate forms of material prosperity and social action. Then the conviction that the economy must be autonomous, that it must be shielded from the influences of moral character, has led man to abuse the economic process in a thoroughly destructive way. In the long term, these convictions have led to economic, social, and political systems that trample upon the personal and social freedoms, and therefore are unable to deliver the justice that they promise. And that's where, I don't know, are you guys familiar with Thomas Wood? Did you ever read him? Okay. He's a pretty orthodox, he's a conservative Catholic, but he's an hard Austrian, and they really think the market can do everything. But what I have to do